On this video, we are going to get a sneak peek about my AFTER course. AFTER stands for Altering Fields to Enable Recovery. And in a nutshell, basically what that means is making a manual dish for yourself. If you clicked on this link, I'm here to share with you the next steps for Dish 101. You can have one-on-one coaching with me and we'll go through this together, or you can take these courses as they become available. But in this video, I want to share with you what I have planned for my dishers. And so, as I mentioned, AFTER stands for Altering Fields to Enable Recovery, and that is the official course outline that I'm going to show you right now. And as always, keep in mind, the medical disclaimer here, this is not medical advice, it is informational purposes only, and feel free to pause the video to read through that. Okay, in this course, I will share with you what I did and learned. Is there a shortcut? I don't know. I only know what I did, and I was learning it along the way. So it was a slow road. It took me 10 years to finally understand what I share with you in this outline of a course that I'm going to show you. So I don't know if there is a shortcut, but this is my journey, and I hope that it will enlighten shortcuts if it is all possible. So we covered Dish 101. You learned what dish is and how it is based scientifically on 5 scientific principles combined together, and you have a solid understanding of what dish is. And so this course that lies ahead will show you that this is how I have organized my thoughts of what worked for me. And so I'm going to be sharing these thoughts with you. And this is no guarantee that it will work for others. So far, it's worked for several, and I cannot state anything other than that because it is a working hypothesis. It has worked for me. It has worked for it has worked for my kids. It has worked for friends, other family members. It has worked for my pets, but does not mean that it works for everybody. But it is still a learning process, and I'm still learning more about dish regularly. So what is a working hypothesis? A working hypothesis is not a final answer, but it is a starting point. Think of it like it is a flashlight in a dark room. You don't see everything, but you can finally see where to step next. And as you gather more information, you adjust the beam and you proceed further. And so how science actually works is that science does not begin with a certainty. It begins with a question, and that's what I did. And so a working hypothesis is just a temporary explanation based on what we know so far. And it is tested, adjusted, and improved on as we go. And so that is how progress is made. And so the reason why this matters is in complex chronic illness situations, clear answers are often missing. And a working hypothesis allows us to look for patterns instead of just feeling stuck. This creates movement when medicine says we don't know what is happening. And so, or there's nothing we can do. And that's where I was at. And so that's why I came up. That's why I did so much research. It took me 5 years before I even had my hypothesis. And then it took me another 5 years of tweaking and experimenting with my hypothesis. Well, if this is true, then what happens if I do this? If this happens, what happens if I do that? And so spent 5 years doing that. And so now I have it all in my head clear. So now I'm going to share with you what I know. And so I broke this course down into actually 4 different courses. And so the first module of the AFTER program is what I call foundation. And foundation is basically stopping the free fall. The agenda for that course is, first of all, is we get to know our bodies. And we know how our bodies work and what to expect from them. And then we figure out how we can protect our bodies knowing what we know about dish. And then the third thing will be how to help our bodies with dish to accomplish what we need to accomplish. And so when we go through that course, we're going to be talking about how to get started. We're going to talk about sway testing. We're going to talk about body's subtle signs. We're going to talk about how to find a doctor to support you and help you through this. We're going to talk about creating a safe environment so where you have an opportunity to be well. We're going to talk about DISH's job number one, which is the shield. And we're going to talk about how to eat safely and organ detox and emotional barriers and how to fix missing information. And that's all covered in this foundation course. And the second course is called Guardian. And I'm going to make it to where you need to go through the previous course before you can go through the next course, because the information builds on each other. And I'm just trying to keep it safe for everybody who wants to learn from this. And so in this second course called Guardian, it's basically to help make methods work. And so by doing that, the agenda for Guardian is that, first of all, we're going to learn how to get our shield up to make DISH be working properly. And then the second thing we're going to be doing is learning how to program the shield so that it does its job. And the third thing we're going to learn how to do is how to keep the shield up so that it continue to do the programming and doing the DISH's job like it was supposed to be doing. And through that process of going through that course, some of the things we're going to be covering is DISH's second job, which is basic sorting. And we're going to talk about how to prevent problems, how to survive daily life, how to think differently. We got some concepts that we need to clarify to help to understand DISH better. We have ways of understanding how to manipulate our DISH to help it do its job even more. And we're going to talk about understanding targets, identifying the 3 different types of ways of dealing with targets. So if you remember in DISH 101, when I was talking about Moxie, we talked about proximity, resemblance, and exposure. We're going into a lot more detail about those in this course. The third course is called Proactive. And what Proactive is basically finding and fixing the root problem. That is not medical advice. It is my disclaimer here is this is what worked for me. I'm not saying it works for you, but that is why I named it what I named it. And so the agenda there is how to prepare to engage, because up to this point we were playing on the defensive. And so we were making defensive moves. We're just basically trying to keep from losing the battle. And so now that we have a solid footing of having defensive moves, at a certain point, if we want to win the game, we need to start scoring points. And so that is when we start talking about how I did my offensive moves to actually make progress forward in my health, to get rid of my food allergies, to no longer have a pituitary gland problem. And those things is what I will be showing you is what I did to accomplish that. So through that course, what we're going to be covering is we're going to look at DISH's second job again for sorting, but we're going to refine it even more to be more specific with it. We're also going to talk about how to survive the battle, because once we go on the offensive, your body's ready to level up, and we need to make sure that we're helping our body through that whole process. I'm going to talk about how I chose a target. I'm going to talk about how I dealt with the bad guys. I'm going to talk about how to work with triggers instead of letting the triggers ruin my day. I'm going to talk about how I would think in batch types. And so before we were looking at batch beginnings, now we're going to talk about batch types. And that's where the fine tuning comes into play based on the different batch types. And if you want to know more about batch types before I'm able to get this course out, I talk about that in my book, Health Backwards. So we're also going to talk about fine tuning food allergies in this section. And then we're going to talk about noticing patterns. We're going to how to detect the bad guys. And we're also going to talk about how to, what I call ground zero, because at one point when the DISH automatic got flipped to manual and we didn't know about it, we need to find that part where it got flipped to where we can flip it back. And so lots of stuff is covered in the Proactive course. And then the last course, this is going to be a shift, and it's going to be different than the other 3, because the first one is preparing for DISH. The second one is just maintaining with DISH. The third one is being proactive and assertive about triggering things so that you can reprogram. Well, this fourth one, we're done learning about DISH. This is really focused more on the really complicated cases and what I've learned with the different individual triggers for each scenario. And I focus, and so they're what I would call the kingpins. And so we talk about the kingpins, and because if you look at my book Health Backwards, I refer to batches as triangles. And so triangles is all the stuff that is affecting you is in this triangle, and adjusting how much and you adjust the dish based on this triangle. Well, at the top of this point, at the top of the triangle, there's actually a pole that goes through it, if you can picture this, and there's several triangles. Like this. And so this pole is connecting several triangles in a row, and it's called a kingpin. And so we're going to talk about the tough kingpins in the Valor module. Another thing we're going to be covering is the common Camp Lejeune contaminants and how I had to deal with them with my dish and the impact and the protocol I followed. Not as medical advice, but just sharing what I know so that you can make better decisions about your health. And the last thing is the difficult cases, and that would include trauma and being a womb twin survivor. If you don't know, you don't know. If you do know, you know. So that's what the last part is about. And so this Valor mode isn't for everyone. I think 1 through 3 will cover it for most people, but there will be some people who will benefit from learning what I'm going to cover in Valor module. Because when I go through Valor module, that's when we talk about we confront the complexity of what is going on. Because if something is wrongly programmed, doesn't matter how long ago it was, if it doesn't get corrected, it's still wrongly programmed. And so it's a way of figuring out how to do the reprogramming. And then we can also I'll also cover inherited issues, because you inherit stuff from your family. I'll show you how to search your family history and how to find answers that way, and where to find the answers. Environmental toxins with Camp Lejeune and all that takes up a large bulk of this Valor module. And then, as I mentioned before, twin and trauma and other information like that. So that's basically, in a nutshell, all 4 courses of the official after course is what my goal here is. I actually have them completely outlined, all 4. Doesn't mean that the outline won't change, but that's what we're working with right now. And 2 of them are actually written out in a book format already, 145,000 words. So for those of you who don't know, that's about 600 pages. So that's basically, in a nutshell, the official after course and the 4 modules that are in it. And so as they become available, I will be releasing them into the classroom on the Disher Tribe, so on the Skool platform. So there you have it.